Welcome back for part B of the pitcher position here in youth baseball. Uh, we covered everything in the wording here right in the part A. We started out discussing these three drawings and how they're specific to the pitcher position, being a top view from the view of the pitcher, and then we're going to start getting into the actual ball, wherever I just set it or it fell, right here. We're going to get into that because, again, teaching our younger youth players, say 7, 8, 9 year old, when they're starting to become player pitch level of baseball, they need to have a clear understanding of what they're doing to manipulate the spin of the ball and what it's going to do. Many people cannot understand exactly what the ball is doing or how they can manipulate it to create a curveball, screwball, so on and so forth. We're going to get exactly the portions of the ball that makes the ball change in direction. Now again, we ended part A with the angle of approach over the strike zone. And what you're seeing in Major League Baseball is a two-dimensional AI created box to identify the strike zone. But the strike zone is anywhere above home plate. So it's not a two-dimensional box. It's actually 5 dimensions because you have 5 sides to home plate. And then you also have a bottom and top elevation based off of the actual batter. Technology is going to be changed now to where I believe within the next 2 years, we're going to start reducing the amount of umpires we actually have during the games to call a strike or a ball. Okay, anybody that wants to, take a bet on that, I'm on board. Within the next 2 years, we're going to have the home plate umpire calling for strikes and balls is going to be replaced by AI. Dare me. Okay. Now, it does not take a ball to have some kind of a sensor in it for the technology to measure it. It only has to be the technology inside of home plate. For those of you that may not know, if you're into firearms, there's devices that you can shoot your firearm, and just the solid object of the projectile passing through a region, the machine can calculate how many feet per second it's going. There's nothing inside of the actual projectile to be tracked. It's just measuring a solid piece through a certain area to be able to project the times and speeds. That's the same technology that's going to make it into baseball. Now, if we go to the pitcher's point of view, once again, with the mound being at the bottom of the screen here, there's home plate, there's your batter's boxes. That's your two-dimensional strike zone. Okay, right there. Now, some umpires, they will be very lenient with the strike zone. Sometimes they will not call it if it's over the actual home plate. Sometimes they'll call it a strike if it passes between the batter's box lines. Okay, so this wide, it's quite a bit wider than the actual plate itself. Okay, and the top elevation for the batter's box is going to be determined by the actual umpire. So you notice umpires that get down into the crouching position, they might identify that any ball that comes in below their shoulders or at their chin, that's within the strike zone. But their crouch is not determined by the member or the player that's standing up to the bat. Because once again, majority of umpires will crouch down to the point where they're behind the catcher. So if you're a catcher, you can manipulate the umpire. As a pitcher, you and the most important player on the field, the catcher, can learn to manipulate that mind manipulation or mental manipulation even to the home plate umpire. If you know they're going down in a certain stance and they're going to be looking over your left shoulder, and the ball's being delivered again from a left-handed pitcher and it's going to end up over here, your movement to catch the ball goes right into their line of sight, their point of view. And depending on where they pick up your glove after the ball has gone in, they might determine that as being a strike if it ends up being in the middle of the frame. That's what framing is. So the catcher and the pitcher are responsible to deliver the ball to create the illusion, that framing of the strike zone. As players, our youth players are advancing in age, especially in that 11 to 12-year-old range, they need to have the fundamentals of the actual catalog of throws that they can throw and start manipulating them in the framing of the actual strike zone. So 7 and 8, 9-year olds, you should be concentrating on just getting the ball across the plate as consistently as possible. Okay, don't introduce curveballs, so on and so forth at that point. If they grasp the idea and they're getting the ball across the plate 9 out of 10 times, then start introducing them to different ways to manipulate and spin the ball for, saying, a right hook, left hook, riser, drop ball, so on and so forth. Okay, at 10, most organizations will already have player pitch players. Okay, I know that's a tongue twister. At that point, they should have a consistency to be able to throw the ball over the base. They should start getting an increasing amount within their catalog of throws they can deliver. 11, they should be adding at least one more type of throw into their catalog. So again, 9, 10, and 11, they should have at least 3 available throws within their control from the pitcher position. Obviously, starting off with just straight down the middle fastball should be the first one that every player should have in their catalog. Say within the second year, they do a curveball and a drop ball, two of the easiest deliveries that they can formulate. So by 12, they should be adding in their 4th pitching ability or manipulation within control. Once you get to 13, it should be 2 styles of delivery every single year as they advance through high school. So by the time they're 18, they have a catalog of 12 different throws from the exact same position. And then you can multiply those 12 different positions from different deliveries, whether it be overhand, sidearm, or submarine. Then you also multiply that by position that they stand and release from the actual pitching mound. So again, if you do the multiplications, by the time a player gets into that college collegiate level, they should have at least 12 pitches in their catalog, whether it be knuckleball, screwball, so on and so forth. Now, once they get to collegiate ball, their available deliveries are over 100 possibilities. Okay, so it does escalate fairly quick. All right. Going on to the last drawing, we need to get into science. Again, the 4 weeks leading up to an actual season should be classroom time. And your pitcher should be, already to the point where they understand some of the history, some of the rules, so on and so forth. If they grasp that understanding or that knowledge and they're concentrating on the pitching position, now you can start getting into the science of the actual baseball. Realize that a ball, as soon as it's being delivered, it typically has some spin to it. Okay, without trying to manipulate it and actually introducing spin during the pitch, even a machine pitch device will put some spin on the ball, and that creates a gyroscope. So now there's multiple factors that go in with the travel of the ball from the time it leaves the hand and goes into the catcher's glove. The gyroscope will rotate on the axis that it's spinning on. Now, we're not talking about the laces yet. We're only going to be talking about the natural forces that are working against a pitcher's delivery. The gyroscope within the spinning of the ball and gravity. Now, the faster the pitch is delivered, the less gravity has an effect on the path of the ball. The slower it is delivered, the greater the altercation of the ball, the flight path will happen. So even with a high overhand delivery, if the ball is only traveling at 30 miles an hour, it's going to hit the dirt by the time it gets to home plate. Easy enough, just from the gravity pulling it down and the natural rotation of the gyroscope. Now, a pitcher can alter that gyroscope going from an over finger pitch to a sidearm pitch or even to a submarine, where it's technically still an overhand pitch, but as the players are bent over so far, the delivery is actually coming from the ground instead of, say, 7 foot. Okay, let's be more real, say 6 foot for our youth players. The ball is being delivered from 6 foot above the mound or at ground level. Now, again, within the history of baseball, I'm going to throw this in real quick. There have been rules establishing the actual height of the pitching mound. Years ago, that pitching mound was twice as high as what they are today within regulation. That downward throw delivery from pitchers of, say, Cy Young, the gravity increased or did not present as much resistance to the ball from the delivery position to a downward motion. And the gravity of the actual pitcher was advanced because of the step down, okay, running downhill basically to add to the speed of the pitch. That initial motion translated into higher or faster pitching speeds. It wasn't necessarily because of the strength or the release within modern day players. It was just the natural gravity and the motion of the ball being delivered that achieves 70, 80 miles an hour. The pitchers could then concentrate more on the ball manipulation to change the gyroscope of the ball. So again, if you look at the older players, let's use Nolan Ryan, for instance. His catalog of pitches, again, was over 100. And his speed could dictate how strong the manipulation of the ball happened. His catalog would cover pitches, again, from 70 miles an hour to, I believe, 94 miles an hour is the fastest he's got on record, officially. Okay? Now, at each different speed, depending on how you manipulate the gyroscope of the ball, the strength of the curve, or lack of curve whatsoever with this knuckleball, was very hard for the batters to actually, learn from and adjust to, and so on and so forth. Again, mind manipulation or mental manipulation. Now, the third, other than the gyroscope, the angle of approach, and the gravity, the other thing that alters the flight path of the ball is the front of the ball. Okay? So with the ball traveling from right to left, only the front of the ball creates friction. As it is passing through the air, there's a positive pressure zone on the front of the ball. And how the laces of the ball are transferring through that pressure area will alter the flight path of the ball. Now, this is where, being a pitcher, if you want to understand the flight path of a ball through the air, going to the golf ball with the little dimples and so on and so forth, if it's slicing right or carrying high, the angle of which the ball is leaving the golf club and the rotation, the gyroscope of that ball, is much more highly modified compared to a baseball. The rotation is much faster. So understanding golf can translate into how good of a pitcher you are, understanding the manipulation and spin of the ball. Now, I do not have it. I couldn't find it as I was coming out today. For our youth players, there's multiple different variations of baseballs that they can use to practice with to enhance their pitching ability. This is a larger plastic variation softball for, say, your 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. Okay, it's a toy. I just brought it out for an example. But your wiffle balls and even your blitz balls that you can pick up at any of your local retailers, okay, the wiffle balls, they have a league. There's an actual baseball league just for wiffle ball creation. They can manipulate the flight path of the ball dramatically. Once again, most of the pitches are not traveling at 100 miles an hour, but the ball can literally almost boomerang to the point where the ball may take a 90-degree corner within a curveball. The blitz ball, that is out on the market today. If you have a player in the 7, 8, and 9-year-old range and they wish to be a pitcher, they need to pick up a blitz ball and start practicing with that. Even on the blitz ball package, when they're bought in the combination of the baseball bat and the 2 blitz balls, they actually have instructions right on the back of the package to show you 4 different pitches that you can add to your catalog utilizing the blitz ball. That same information can transfer over to a wiffle ball. That same information can be transferred over to an official baseball. So learning how to manipulate the much lighter, textured ball, the blitz ball, they can learn the delivery and add to their catalog of pitches utilizing that tool. It will transfer in, just not as strong, to an actual baseball. Now again, it's because of the pressure onto the front of the ball. The faster the ball is moving, the less the spin, the gyro motion of the ball is going to allow the flight path to change. So again, some of these, if you actually find some of these new Major League Baseball players that are throwing a curveball at the same time as delivering it at over 100 miles an hour, the amount of revolutions, the RPMs they have on the spin of the ball to affect the gyroscope is astronomical. I believe the last figure that I've seen with the Major League Baseball is that the ball is spinning 18,000 RPM. At 100 miles an hour, the ball has to be spinning at 18,000 RPM in order to curve 1 foot at home plate. Okay, where the average player is getting anywhere from 8 to 900 revolutions when they're pitching a curveball. Let that sink in. 8 to 900 revolutions from a typical high school player to 18,000 revolutions of a Major League Baseball player. So remember that jump from 12U play to 13-year-old play, the throwing distance goes from 75 to 100 feet to automatically jumps up to 200 feet. Okay, and then it escalates even more when they're in high school levels. When they get to Major League Baseball play, it's going from 700 or 800 revolutions to 18,000. Okay, drastic change there. Is your player ready for what comes next? Okay, now, depending on the portion of the laces, this one doesn't have it blacked in, so I'm going to color it in with my marker here. Now, as stated in previous videos, depending on the age level of the ball, whether it be a 8U ball, a leather wrapped ball, that the laces will actually be constructed in a way that they have different, they will protrude from the actual leather of the ball at different heights because of the thickness of the actual thread. So it's wax thread that creates the laces of a baseball. As you go up in ages, that diameter of that thread decreases, and also the leather goes to a thicker gauge. So a typical baseball for 8U is only a 3mm leather with, say, a number 9 wax thread. Once you get to 13, it's a 5 grade leather, 5mm leather, with laces that are only in that 7 or 8mm range. So again, the laces shrink into the ball because the leather becomes thicker. That reduces the capability of the player to grip onto the laces. So again, when you're introducing the 7 and 8 and 9-year-old players, the blitz ball doesn't have laces. It has octagonal shapes around the entire ball, so they can get grip with their small little fingers. And as the ball is traveling through the air, there's a lot of multiple surfaces all the way around the ball that will direct the ball within their rotations. With an actual baseball, once again, duplicating what is behind me on the board, as the ball is traveling through the air, there is a pressure zone. Okay, it does not matter what the pressure zone is behind. Okay, it does not matter whatsoever. As the ball is going in the flight path, the pressure on front of the ball, it covers basically the front 60% of the ball. The air that's traveling over the top or the bottom has less effect on the flight path than the front of the ball. Now, depending on how the ball rotation is, the gyroscope is affected within the internal of the baseball. The actual way the baseball is spinning creates a gyroscope. The laces passing through that pressure zone, okay, once again, at RPMs of anywhere from 80 RPM from a very younger player to 18,000 within the Major League Baseball, depending on how fast the ball's traveling and how those laces are traveling through that pressure zone, will manipulate the flight path. Okay? That's one of the biggest things that you can teach to your youth baseball players, to understand it is just the front of the ball and the way that the laces are passing through that area that affects the flight path because of the ball spin. So in combination of the delivery, either overhand sidearm or submarine, left or right-handed, or individuals taking extreme leaps to the side for the ball delivery, the gravity, the speed of the ball, and the rotation of the ball determine what the ball is going to do within its flight path across home plate. By the age of 11 and 12 years old, pitchers should have at least 4 pitches within their catalog and be able to deliver them from at least two positions, whether it's overhand and sidearm, or for your talented players that can have the hand and eye coordination to do all three as far as overhand, sidearm, or some marine type pitch. That's multiplied by the 4 pitches that they have within their catalog. Okay, so again, once they get to that leap of 13 and the speed starts becoming more important, it's not 50 or 60 mile an hour pitches. Now they're being pushed to deliver it at 70 to 80. They have the manipulation control within the spin of the ball as part of their catalog. And at that point, then they become faster and faster and faster. So again, going into youth baseball development, the pitching position, I love working with kids in that age group of, say, 4 years old to 18, helping them, giving them advice and adjusting them to their natural abilities and instructing them of just taking one step at a time. Because again, like I've mentioned, at 8 to 9 year old, the pitching position is being being instructed or being placed into the games. At least 1 year prior to that, players should be practicing pitching. And during the off season, they should also be doing it. The pitchers dedicate the most amount of time out of all the players on the baseball field. They're not the most important player, okay, the catcher is, but they should dedicate the most amount of time. And if you're starting getting into pitch counts, folks, if you take that roundabout number of 80 pitches per game, maximum according to what the regulations say, and they have a 24-hour rest time even in between. But if you do that year-round, 365 days a year, okay, that's where injuries are coming from. So again, instead of pushing players for achieving speeds, the AI-generated average speeds, make that your maximum amount. Okay? If your player's a stud and they're throwing 70-mile-an-hour fastballs at the age of 10, okay, that's great. How much control do they have? How many pitch deliveries do they have in their catalog? And are they going to be hurt by the time they're 16? Yes. So the reality of all of this, the pitcher is the most dedicated player. They themselves have to have the most mental control of all the players on the field to the point where they can manipulate the batters within that mental manipulation. Okay? So if you are volunteering to become a coach in that 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-old range, and you do not agree with what I've just said right here, you are not necessarily doing your players a favor. You should know all of this before you start teaching somebody to pitch. You might be the cause why individuals of 16, 17 years old are going in for their second or third Tommy John surgery. Okay? So with that, hopefully that is helpful within Part B here. This is number 12 out of the series. This is the last that I'm doing as far as baseball. There's multiple locations on the internet to find out instruction. Be careful, just like any other topic, be careful who you're taking your advice from. Again, is it about talk, or do these individuals have actual experience? Not only in high school baseball, because again, they were in that development phases. As they've gotten older, or their kids into it and say, oh yeah, I played high school, say that Al Bundy, okay? Is Al Bundy the coach of your team? Or is it an individual that sees the in-depth information that's going on within baseball now and can transition that information even from the elite major leagues to lower levels of your 7, 8, 9-year-old players, both instructing them to become better and restricting them from getting hurt? Insurance companies that are covering recreational ball, travel ball, do the individuals having that conversation between those organizations, do they know what is causing the injuries? Because once again, you're going to have kids going to the hospital. Take that into account. Don't push your kids. This is the problem with maybe some of the daddy ball or some of the travel ball that's going on in the nation right now, and even within Little League. A lot of the parents and coaches believe that they have some all-star that they need to actually capitalize on every single year to the point where they get burnt out. Go back to video 10, parts A and B. That's why players are getting burnt out and losing interest in the game. If you give them the goal of just adding one additional pitch to their catalog, it won't burn them out. Once they perfected that pitch, they will be asking if they can move on to another one. Let them advance at their own natural speed. Okay? Do not push the actual pitching speed on them. Make it about control. Even the younger youth players, the batters themselves, are going to appreciate that because they're going to get hit less. Okay? You're going to win more games with a good pitcher. Imagine that. Because how many of you in the 8, 9-year-old range that don't have control and you do hit the batters actually lose the games because of the amount of players that you walk? It's a thing. Trust me. I've won entire seasons with nothing but against opponents that they've done nothing but hit my players, and they just advance from being hit. That's how they score the entire games. So it's not whether or not I'm manipulating the rules or regulations, okay? It's the other team's capability of having a pitcher that has control. It wasn't because of the actual batting talent of my players. They just stood there and got hit by the ball. They never even swung. But they would win games to the point where mercy rule was enforced. Okay, again, if you're in that situation, if you're in a league like that, you need to have an internal conversation with the entire board. Are your coaches good enough to teach the kids? Volunteer is great, but they have to have some experience. Have a good one.